The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched upward like the inside of a hollow mountain, and Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood alone at its center. She was a small figure surrounded by giants who looked down at her from their towering seats carved into the walls themselves. 12 species ruled this galaxy, and they had ruled it for 10,000 years without question or challenge. The Vethkai with their shimmering scales and cold eyes sat in the highest position. Their neck frills spread wide in what Elena knew was a display of dominance. Beside them, the massive Kreth delegates loomed like living mountains of gray flesh, their 4 arms crossed over barrel chests. The ethereal Sindari floated in chambers of specialized gas, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent light. Elena had stood in this chamber many times before. 60 years of her life had been dedicated to this single purpose, and 60 years of her predecessors before that. Humanity wanted nothing more than to be recognized as equals, to trade freely among the stars, to learn and grow alongside the other species of the galaxy. But every time they asked, the answer was always the same. The human species remains too young, High Counselor Zetharan announced, his Vethkai voice echoing through the vast chamber like the sound of breaking glass. Your civilization has existed for merely 10,000 years, and you have been aware of our existence for only 120. This is not enough time to prove your stability. Elena kept her face calm even as anger burned in her chest. She had heard these words so many times that she could recite them from memory. Furthermore, another counselor added, this one a Kreth, whose name Elena had never bothered to learn. Your species has demonstrated troubling patterns of aggression. Your history is filled with war and conflict and destruction. You turned your own world into a weapon testing ground before you even reached the stars. We have also shown remarkable capacity for cooperation, Elena replied, her voice steady and clear in the enormous space. We united our entire planet under one government. We ended our wars. We came to you in peace. A sound rippled through the chamber that might have been laughter from species who did not laugh the way humans did. You ended your wars because you ran out of enemies, the Sindari representative said, its voice like wind through hollow reeds. You united because you found us, and you feared what we might do. This is not growth, Ambassador. This is survival instinct dressed in pretty clothing. Elena said nothing because there was nothing to say that she had not said 100 times before. High Counselor Zetharan raised one clawed hand, and the chamber fell silent. The council has reached its decision, he announced, and Elena felt her heart turn cold in her chest. The human species will be confined to their home system effective immediately. Trade with human worlds is forbidden. Technology transfer to human worlds is forbidden. Any human vessel that crosses the boundary line will be destroyed without warning. The words hit Elena like physical blows, but she did not flinch. She had expected this, had known it was coming for months. The council had grown tired of humanity's constant requests, and this was their solution, not destruction, not war, just quiet suffocation. You will be monitored, Zetharan continued. Observation posts will be established at your system's edge. Any attempt to develop certain categories of technology will result in immediate intervention. You will remain contained until such time as the Council determines you have matured sufficiently to join galactic civilization. How long would that be? Elena wondered. 1,000 years. 10,000. The Council species measured time differently than humans did, and what seemed like a reasonable waiting period to them would be countless generations of humanity living in a cage. The human delegation may respond, Zetharan said, settling back in his seat with the satisfaction of someone who had just solved an annoying problem. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces watching her. Some showed contempt, others showed pity, and a few showed nothing at all. None of them showed respect because none of them had ever respected humanity. They saw humans as children at best and dangerous animals at worst. She thought about what she was supposed to say. There was a speech prepared, written by diplomats and politicians back on Earth, full of careful words designed to keep the door open for future negotiations. She was supposed to accept the ruling gracefully and express hope that one day humanity would prove itself worthy. But as she stood there in the center of that ancient chamber, Elena realized something important. They would never see humanity as worthy. It did not matter what humans did or how long they waited. The Council had made up their minds 10,000 years ago about what civilization looked like, and anything that did not match their image would never be accepted. She smiled, and something in that smile made High Counselor Zetharan's neck frills twitch with sudden unease. "The United Earth Federation acknowledges your decision," Elena said, and her voice carried clearly to every corner of the vast hall. "We understand your position, and we recognize that further discussion would be pointless." She paused, and in that pause, the silence was so complete that she could hear the soft hum of the Sindari's life support systems. "Humanity will no longer seek dialogue with this council," she continued. "We will return to our system as you have commanded. We will trouble you no further with our requests." She turned and began to walk toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the stunned silence. She had taken 3 steps when Zetharan called out, "Ambassador, do you not wish to add anything else? Do you not wish to express hope for future relations?" Elena stopped but did not turn around. "No," she said simply. "There is nothing more to say. Goodbye, High Counselor." She walked out of the chamber and never looked back. The council members exchanged glances of confusion and relief. The human problem had been solved so easily, and the aggressive young species had accepted their fate without protest. Surely this was proof that they had made the right decision. Zetharan dismissed the assembly with a wave of his claw, and the councillors began to disperse to their own concerns. None of them stopped to consider the exact words Elena had used. None of them noticed that she had said, "No longer seek, rather than accept." None of them understood that for humanity, silence was not surrender. In her ship racing back toward Earth, Elena Vasquez sent a single coded message to the United Earth Federation government. It contained only 2 words that would change the course of galactic history: "Begin preparations." The dialogue was over, but something else was just beginning. 20 years passed in the galaxy like water flowing through an ancient river. And for the Galactic Council, those years were filled with the same comfortable routine that had defined their existence for millennia. Trade routes hummed with activity, disputes were settled through proper channels, and the great machine of interstellar civilization continued to turn as it always had. But at the edge of council space, where the boundary markers blinked their eternal warnings, something strange was happening. The humans had gone completely silent. At first, the council considered this a blessing. No more tiresome delegations, no more requests for recognition, no more of those unsettling human smiles that never quite reached their eyes. The observation posts reported that human ships had retreated deep into their own system, and that was exactly what the council had ordered them to do. But as the years stretched on, the silence began to feel different. It began to feel heavy. Senior observer Kithanol of the Vethkai had been stationed at Boundary Post 7 for 15 years, and in all that time she had never seen a single human vessel approach the line. This should have been comforting, but instead, it made her scales itch with an anxiety she could not explain. She sent regular reports to the council, stating that human space remained quiet, but she always felt like she was missing something important. In the 5th year of silence, she launched a probe into human territory. It was a simple observation drone designed to gather basic information about activity levels and technological development. The probe crossed the boundary, transmitted its position once, and then vanished. There was no explosion, no signal of destruction, No debris field, the probe simply stopped existing as if it had never been built. Kithanel reported this to her superiors, who assured her it was probably a malfunction. Probes failed sometimes, and there was nothing to worry about. She launched another probe in the 6th year, and the same thing happened. By the 10th year, she had lost 17 probes, and her reports had grown increasingly urgent. Something was very wrong in human space, she wrote, something the Council needed to investigate. But her warnings went unheeded because the Council had more important matters to attend to. And besides, what could humans possibly do that would threaten the combined might of 12 spacefaring civilizations? Meanwhile, strange readings began appearing on long-range sensors throughout the region. Massive energy signatures would flare briefly in human space and then disappear. Gravitational anomalies rippled outward like waves in a pond. Entire asteroid belts that had been mapped and cataloged for centuries simply vanished from their orbits. The Sindari, whose sensitivity to energy fields was unmatched among Council species, were the first to express formal concern. Their representative addressed the Council in the 15th year of silence with a warning that something unprecedented was occurring within the human boundary. The energy patterns we are detecting do not match any known technology, the Sindari said, its translucent body flickering with agitation. They are not nuclear, not antimatter, not even 0 point. They are something else entirely, something we have no reference for. High Counselor Zetharan dismissed these concerns with a wave of his claw. The humans are likely experimenting with dangerous forces they do not understand, he declared. Young species often destroy themselves through such recklessness. We may be witnessing the death throes of their civilization. Some counselors nodded in agreement, but others exchanged uncertain glances. The energy readings were far too controlled, far too precise to be the result of failed experiments. Whatever the humans were doing, they seemed to know exactly what they were doing. In the 18th year of silence, a Kreth mining vessel operating near the boundary reported something that sent chills through the entire Council. The ship's captain claimed to have seen something impossible, a human vessel that appeared out of nowhere, hung in space for exactly 30 seconds as if observing them, and then vanished without a trace. The captain was questioned extensively and eventually dismissed as unreliable. Kreth were not known for their sharp eyes, and the vessel had probably been a sensor ghost or a trick of the light. But then similar reports began coming from other ships and from other species. Avethkai patrol saw human vessels near the trade lanes of the Outer Reach. A Sindari science station detected human energy signatures in the deep void between stars. A Dominion freighter captain swore that a human ship had matched his course for 3 hours before disappearing. The Council convened an emergency session in the 19th year to discuss the human situation. For the first time in centuries, there was genuine disagreement among the ruling species. "We must investigate," the Kreth delegate demanded, his massive fist striking his speaking platform for emphasis. "We must send a fleet into human space and determine what they are doing." "That would violate our own quarantine order," a Sindari counselor pointed out. "We told them to stay in their system and that we would leave them alone. If we invade now, we become the aggressors." "They have already violated the quarantine," the Kreth shot back. "Those ships our people are seeing did not come from nowhere. The humans are operating outside their boundaries, and we have every right to respond." High Counselor Zetharan listened to the debate with growing unease. He had been so certain that containment was the right approach, so confident that humanity would either accept their fate or destroy themselves. He had not considered the possibility that they might do something else entirely. "What do we actually know about human capabilities?" he asked quietly, and the question silenced the chamber. "What have they accomplished since we confined them?" No one could answer because no one knew. The probes had been lost. The long-range sensors could only detect fragments, and the vanishing ships had revealed nothing about human technology. For the first time in his long life, Zetharan felt something he had not experienced since he was a hatchling. He felt afraid. "We will wait," he decided finally. "We will continue to observe and gather information. There is no need for hasty action." But even as he spoke those words, he knew they were hollow. They had already waited 20 years, and every year the mystery had only deepened. What had humanity become in the silence? What were they building out there in the dark? And what would happen when they finally decided to reveal themselves? These questions haunted the council as the 20th year of silence began, and none of them could shake the growing feeling that they had made a terrible mistake. The humans have been given 20 years of solitude, 20 years without interference, 20 years to focus all their energy and creativity and drive on a single purpose. The council was about to learn what humanity could accomplish when they stopped asking for permission and started building their own future. The Kreth hegemony had never been known for patience. While the council debated and worried and sent endless reports to committees that would discuss them for years, Fleet Commander Grath Khan made a decision on his own authority. He would take his fleet into human space and end the mystery once and for all. "We are the Kreth," he told his officers as they gathered on the bridge of his flagship, the Unbreakable Will. "We do not hide from shadows and whispers. We do not fear a species that was still living in mud huts when our ancestors first traveled between stars. We will enter their territory, we will assess their capabilities, and we will remind them why the Council confined them in the first place." His officers roared their approval because Kreth always roared their approval for bold action. They were warriors born from a warrior culture, and 20 years of peace had left them hungry for something to conquer. The fleet that assembled at the boundary was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 300 years. 12 dreadnoughts formed the core, each one a mountain of armor and weapons capable of destroying cities from orbit. 200 support vessels surrounded them, cruisers and frigates and carriers filled with fighter craft. Altogether, nearly 50,000 Kreth warriors prepared to cross into human space. The Council sent urgent messages demanding that Grath Khan stand down, but he ignored them. By the time they could organize a response, he would already have answers, and answers were what everyone needed. "All ships," Grath Khan commanded, "cross the boundary. Maintain formation and proceed at standard cruising speed. We go to meet the humans." The fleet moved forward as one massive entity, crossing the invisible line that had separated human space from the rest of the galaxy for 20 years. Sensors swept ahead of them, searching for any sign of human activity, but the void seemed empty and quiet. For the first 3 minutes, nothing happened. Grath Khan stood at the center of his bridge, watching the tactical display with growing confidence. The humans were probably hiding, he thought, cowering in their little system while the might of the Kreth approached. They would learn soon enough that they could not hide forever. In the 4th minute, the first anomaly appeared. A strange energy reading flickered at the edge of sensor range, there for an instant and then gone. Grath Khan ordered increased scanning power, but nothing else appeared. In the 5th minute, the communications officer reported something strange. All signals from outside the fleet had stopped. They could no longer reach the boundary post behind them or contact any vessel outside human space. It was as if a wall had risen around them, cutting them off from the rest of the galaxy. "Interference," Grath Khan said dismissively, but his voice carried less certainty than before. "Continue forward." In the 6th minute, everything changed. It started with the lights. Across every ship in the fleet, the lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. Emergency systems tried to activate, but they too failed. In seconds, every vessel in the Kreth fleet went dark and silent. Grath Khan shouted orders, but his voice echoed in a bridge that no longer responded to commands. The tactical displays were blank, the weapons were offline, the engines were dead. The unbreakable will had become nothing more than a metal coffin drifting through space. And then the humans appeared. They came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Ships that seemed to fold out of empty space surrounded the helpless Kreth fleet. They were sleek and elegant and terrifying, their hulls shimmering with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. Grathkon stared at them through the bridge viewport, and for the first time in his life, he understood what it felt like to be prey. A voice spoke through every communication system in the fleet, despite the fact that those systems were supposed to be dead. It was a human voice, calm and clear and completely without emotion. Attention, Kreth vessels. You have violated the boundary without authorization. Your fleet has been neutralized. Your weapons have been disabled. Your engines have been disabled. Your life support systems will continue to function. You will not be harmed unless you attempt hostile action. Grathkon is voiced somehow. This is Fleet Commander Grathkon of the Kreth Hegemony. You have committed an act of war against a council species. You will release our vessels immediately. The voice did not respond to his demand. Instead, it continued as if he had not spoken. One vessel will be permitted to leave. It will carry our message to the council. The remaining vessels and crew will be held until we determine they pose no threat. This is not negotiable. Grathkon wanted to fight, wanted to rage against this humiliation, but there was nothing to fight with. His mighty fleet had been reduced to helpless wreckage in less than 6 minutes, and the humans had not fired a single weapon he could see. "What have you done to us?" he demanded. "What technology is this?" This time, the voice paused before responding, and when it spoke again, there was something almost like amusement in its tone. "We have done nothing harmful, Commander. We have simply asked your ships to sleep. They will wake when we permit them to wake. Your crews are unharmed and will remain so. We are not murderers." A single Kreth frigate suddenly hummed back to life, its systems reactivating one by one. The human voice spoke again. "This vessel will return to Council space. Its crew will deliver our message. The boundary exists for your protection, not ours. Do not cross it again." The frigate's engines activated on their own, turning the ship around and accelerating it back toward the boundary. Its crew could do nothing but watch as their vessel carried them away from their trapped comrades. Grathkon stood in the darkness of his dead bridge and watched the human ships that surrounded his fleet. They made no threatening moves, fired no weapons, sent no further communications. They simply watched and waited. In that moment, he understood something that the Council had failed to grasp for 20 years. Humanity had not been contained by the quarantine. Humanity had been set free by it. Free from the burden of seeking approval, free from the distraction of diplomacy, free to focus every ounce of their energy on becoming something new. The humans had evolved beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen, and they had done it in just 20 years. The Kreth fleet would remain suspended in human space for 3 months before being released. Every warrior would return home changed, carrying stories of a power they could not explain and could not fight. But the true impact would come from the message delivered by that single frigate. 2 words that would echo through the council chambers and change everything. "We warned you." The galaxy would never be the same again. The council chambers had never known such fear. When the Kreth fleet finally returned from human space, scientists from every species descended upon the vessels like hungry predators seeking answers. What they found shattered everything they thought they knew about the limits of technology. Chief Researcher Vintel of the Sindari led the investigation team, and her preliminary report caused 3 counselors to request immediate medical attention. The humans had not used weapons to disable the Kreth fleet, at least not weapons in any sense the Council understood. Instead, they had somehow communicated directly with the ships themselves. The vessels were not damaged, Vintel explained to the assembled council. her translucent body pulsing with agitation. Their systems were not attacked or overloaded. They were simply told to stop functioning, and they obeyed. It is as if the humans have learned to speak the language of machines at a level so fundamental that no defense against it is possible. High Counselor Zetharan leaned forward in his seat, his neck frills pressed flat against his skull in a display of extreme stress. How is this possible? Our technology is 10,000 years more advanced than theirs. Our technology is 10,000 years older, Vintel corrected gently. That is not the same thing. We have refined and improved what we already had, but we stopped truly innovating long ago. The humans started from nothing and built something entirely new. The report continued with revelation after revelation. Human ships could fold space in ways that should have been mathematically impossible. They could draw energy directly from the fabric of reality itself. They could move through dimensions that Council scientists had only theorized might exist. But the most disturbing discovery came from the Deep Space Observatory Network. For years they had detected occasional anomalies that had been dismissed as sensor errors, but a new analysis revealed the truth. Human vessels had been moving through Council territory for at least 15 years. They had mapped every major system, every military installation, every trade route and communication hub. They knew more about the Council's infrastructure than many Council species knew about each other. And they had done all of this without being detected even once. They have been watching us, the Kreth delegate said, his voice hollow with shock. All this time we thought they were trapped in their little system, and they were watching us. Not trapped, Vintel said quietly. They chose to stay. They wanted us to think they were contained. They wanted time. The realization hit the Council like a physical blow. Humanity had not been hiding from them, had not been cowering behind their boundary. Humanity had been studying them, learning their weaknesses, preparing for something the Council could not yet understand. Zetharan made a decision that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. He ordered his communications officers to open a channel to human space and request, not demand. Request a meeting with whoever now led the United Earth Federation. The response came within minutes, far too quickly for a signal to travel to Earth and back. The humans had been listening all along. The Federation accepts your request, a human voice said over the Council's own communication systems. Supreme Commander Vasquez will address your assembly. Prepare your chambers. Before anyone could ask how the human commander intended to travel so far so quickly, reality itself seemed to bend at the center of the Council Hall. A circle of light appeared in the air, and through it stepped a human woman in a uniform of deep blue marked with silver stars. She was young, impossibly young to hold such a title, but her eyes held a wisdom that seemed far older than her years. She stood where her grandmother Elena had stood 2 decades before, but she stood there not as a petitioner seeking favor. She stood there as something else entirely. I am Supreme Commander Yuki Vasquez of the United Earth Federation, she announced, her voice clear and strong. I believe you have been trying to understand what we have become. Allow me to explain. She raised one hand, and above her palm a holographic display appeared showing images of human space. But it was not the human space the Council remembered. It was something vast and bright and full of structures that defied comprehension. When you confined us, you thought you were putting us in a cage, Yuki said. You thought isolation would break our spirit or force us to destroy ourselves. You did not understand what you were really giving us. She gestured, and the display changed to show human scientists working in laboratories that floated in the hearts of stars. You gave us focus. For the first time in our history, every human being shared a single purpose. We were not going to accept your judgment, and we were not going to beg for your approval. We were going to surpass you. The display shifted again, showing human ships moving through space in ways that seemed to ignore all physical laws. You gave us motivation. Every year of isolation reminded us why we needed to grow. Every moment of silence was a moment of determination. We did not waste a single second. Finally, the display showed something that made every counselor gasp. It showed the galaxy itself, but overlaid with patterns of light that represented human presence. The patterns were everywhere, touching every corner of known space. "You gave us 20 years," Yuki said softly. "In 20 years, we went from a confined species to something you cannot even classify. We have solved problems your scientists have struggled with for millennia. We have discovered things you never imagined existed. We have grown beyond anything this galaxy has ever seen." She looked around the chamber at the faces watching her with fear and wonder. "We could destroy you. We could take everything you have and leave you with nothing. We could rule this galaxy as absolute masters, and there is nothing you could do to stop us." Zetheran's voice was barely a whisper. "Then why have you not done so?" Yuki smiled, and it was the first genuine smile a human had shown in that chamber for 20 years. "Because destruction was never our goal. We did not grow strong so that we could crush you. We grew strong so that we would never be crushed again. There is a difference, High Counselor, and that difference is everything." She lowered her hand, and the display vanished. "We have watched you for many years. We know your strengths and your weaknesses. We know that you are not evil, merely old. You forgot how to grow because you forgot how to struggle. We can help you remember." "Help us," the Sindari representative repeated, confusion evident in every flicker of its bioluminescent body. "After what we did to you, you offer help." "Yes," Yuki said simply, "because that is who we are. That is who we have always been. We rage and we fight and we refuse to surrender. But in the end, we reach out our hands to those who need us." She extended her hand toward the High Counselor. "The question is, will you take it?" The silence in the council chamber stretched on for what felt like eternity. Yuki Vasquez stood with her hand extended, patient and calm, waiting for the species who had imprisoned her people to make their choice. She had learned patience during the long years of preparation, and she could wait as long as necessary. High Counselor Zetheran stared at that offered hand as if it were a puzzle he could not solve. His entire understanding of the universe had been shattered in a single day. Everything he thought he knew about power and strength and civilization had been proven wrong. The humans should have been angry. They should have been vengeful. They should have come with weapons blazing and demands for payment for every year of suffering and humiliation. That was what any council species would have done in their position. Instead, they offered help. "I do not understand," Zetheran finally admitted, and speaking those words cost him more than any physical wound ever could. "We treated you as dangerous animals. We locked you away and forgot about you. Why would you help us after everything we did?" Yuki lowered her hand but did not step back. "Let me tell you a story," she said. "When my grandmother walked out of this chamber 20 years ago, she was furious. She wanted revenge more than anything she had ever wanted in her life. She spent the first 5 years of our isolation planning ways to make you suffer." The council listened in tense silence as she continued. But somewhere during those years, something changed. She realized that revenge would make us no better than what you feared we were. If we destroyed you, we would prove every terrible thing you believed about humanity. We would become the monsters you imagined. She began to walk slowly around the chamber, looking at each species representative as she passed. So she chose a different path. Instead of building weapons to hurt you, we built tools to surpass you. Instead of planning conquest, we planned transcendence. We decided that the best revenge was not destruction, but evolution. She stopped in front of the Kreth delegation, whose members sat in unusual stillness. "Your fleet attacked us, and we could have killed every warrior aboard. Instead, we put them to sleep and sent them home safely. Did you know that some of your soldiers woke up crying because they had dreamed of their families for the first time in years? The Kreth delegate said nothing, but his massive hands trembled slightly. Yuki moved on to the Sundari. Your species has been dying slowly for 3,000 years. Your birth rates decline, and your colonies shrink because your sun is fading. We have developed technology that could restore it. We could give you millions of years of new life. The Sundari representative pulsed with shocked light. That is impossible. Many things are impossible until someone does them, Yuki replied gently. She continued around the chamber, telling each species something humanity could offer them. Cures for ancient diseases, solutions to environmental disasters, technologies that could transform struggling worlds into paradises. With each revelation, the mood in the chamber shifted further from fear towards something that might have been hope. Finally, she returned to stand before Zetharan. We have watched you for a long time, High Counselor. We know that your species was once explorers and dreamers. 10,000 years ago, the Vethkai were the most curious and adventurous people in the galaxy. You discovered most of the species in this room. Zetharan's neck frills lifted slightly in surprise. No one had spoken of those days in centuries. But somewhere along the way you stopped exploring, Yuki continued. You found enough, you built enough, you conquered enough, and you decided that was sufficient. You became caretakers of what existed instead of seekers of what might be. You forgot the joy of discovery. She smiled warmly. We have not forgotten. We cannot forget. It is in our nature to always reach for something beyond our grasp. And now we want to share that nature with you. What exactly are you proposing? The Sundari asked. Curiosity overcoming caution. Partnership? Yuki said simply. Not conquest, not control, not even leadership. We propose that humanity and the council species work together as equals to explore the galaxy and beyond. There are things out there that even we have not discovered yet. Wonders and dangers that no single species should face alone. She raised her hand again, but this time she opened it to show a small device that glowed with soft light. This is a gift. It contains the basic principles of our dimensional folding technology. Not the full design, but enough to begin your own research. We offer it freely with no conditions attached. Zetharan stared at the device in disbelief. Why would you share such power? Because power shared is power multiplied, Yuki answered. Because we want allies, not subjects. Because the universe is vast and dark and full of mysteries that frighten even us. And because my grandmother taught me that the measure of a civilization is not what it can take, but what it can give. She set the device on the speaking platform and stepped back. We will not force you to accept. The choice is entirely yours. If you wish to continue as you were, we will close our borders and leave you in peace. But if you wish to grow, to learn, to become something new, we will be waiting. The silence that followed was different from before. It was not the silence of fear, but the silence of consideration. For the first time in thousands of years, the council was genuinely thinking about the future instead of simply maintaining the present. It was the Sundari who moved first. Their representative floated forward from their seat and drifted down to hover before Yuki. My people are dying, they said. We have accepted this for so long that we forgot to fight against it. If you can truly help us, we will stand with humanity. One by one, the other species added their voices. The Kreth pledged their strength. Smaller species who had never dared speak in council sessions offered their support. Even ancient rivals set aside their differences in the face of this new possibility. Finally, only Zetharan remained silent. The weight of decision pressed down on him as the entire chamber waited for the Vethkai to speak. He rose from his seat slowly, his old bones protesting the movement, and made his way down to stand before Yuki Vasquez. Up close, she seemed even younger, yet her eyes held depths he could not fathom. 20 years ago, your grandmother stood in this hall and accepted our judgment with a smile I did not understand, he said. Now I know what that smile meant. She knew even then that we were wrong. She knew that humanity would prove us wrong. He reached out and took her hand in his clawed grip. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I accept your offer of partnership. May our species grow together towards something greater than either could achieve alone. Yuki squeezed his hand gently. The dialogue begins again, High Counselor. This time as equals. This time forever. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 1,000,000 ships. Beings of every species looked up at the stars and felt something they had not felt in ages. The thrill of possibility. The excitement of discovery. The beautiful uncertainty of a future yet to be written. Humanity had been confined to teach them their place, but they had learned a different lesson entirely. They had learned that cages were only as strong as the will of those inside them. They had learned that the greatest strength was not the power to destroy, but the power to rise above. And now they would teach that lesson to the entire galaxy. The dialogue had ended, but the conversation was just beginning.